One of the more dramatic parts of your book is how the world escaped a potential nuclear incident in 2022. Walk us through that. What happened?
So this is late summer, early fall 2022, and there were a combination of factors that led the U.S. to assess that Russia was very seriously considering a tactical nuclear strike in Ukraine. That led to, as one official, senior U.S. official I spoke to, led to them to prepare rigorously for this possibility, and that included U.S. officials meeting with or contacting their Russian counterparts. Bill Burns went to Turkey to meet Sergei Naryshkin. Mark Milley calls Gerasimov. Blinken calls Lavrov, etc., to say basically, we see all this. What are you up to here? And don't think about a nuclear strike. You know, the world's response would be consequential. Allies doing the same. But then the final piece, which you were referencing in your question, is that the U.S. reached out to what Blinken described to me as unusual allies in this case, and that is China and India, allies in this effort that they believed Russia would listen to more. And in the U.S. assessment, and some of this is in the public record, public statements by Xi and Indian leaders at the time, was that they did get on board and pushed Russia quite directly not to do this. And you have public statements from Xi when I believe Olaf Scholz was visiting Beijing at the time. You have public statements from the Indian foreign minister at the UN. You even had a cancellation of a meeting in India that was planned, all part of this mix to say, don't even think about it, which Blinken and others told me they believe made a difference. They made a difference in heading this off. Since then, it hasn't entirely disappeared. They continue to worry that in certain circumstances, Russia might consider that.
And it strikes me that of all the levers that the United States had to deter Russia, there was, obviously direct communications with the Russians, but it seems like what might have moved the needle in the end the most was America's ability to speak to India and China and get them to exert some pressure. And of course, as this is going on, India and China are also ramping up purchases of Russian oil. So in India's case, for example, at the start of 2022, I think India was getting just 1% of Russian crude, and now it's upwards of 50% of Russian exports. India and China combined take about 80% of Russian exports of crude. How much of this do you think is India and China's gamesmanship versus any other sort of real fears that Putin might have of angering Xi Jinping and Modi?
Well, let's just say that India and China, by doing that, are saving the war in Ukraine for Russia, right? Because that is funding the war. The economy, the Russian economy couldn't withstand this if they didn't find other buyers for its crude. So they, if Beijing has made a decision not to openly send tanks or artillery shells to Ukraine, they are sending money in effect for Russia. And not just for the war effort in Ukraine, but for propping up Putin's leadership.